there's a group of 30 or 40 bestsellers, best-selling writers, who come out every year. Right now, Lee Child is probably the leading sales guy among those kinds of people. But it's a group of people who come out very frequently and make very good livings. There are another group of people who who publish books only sporadically, every 3 or 4 years, but a lot of people are waiting for them, and they sell a huge number of books. Dan Brown is an example of that. Then there are, or The Vampire Lady. Then there are literary people who write books that are sometimes waited for decades, and they'll sell okay, but those people are about something else besides money. They often have an entirely different life, working as university professors, writing teachers, speakers, and that kind of thing. And then, of course, you have all the nonfiction people. So basically, it's a very strange landscape out there. And what can you say? That's the way it is.
Yeah. What was your first book, published or unpublished, and what do you think about it now?
Who asked that question?
Oh, that was from Marie Garrison.
Okay, well, my first book was a long time ago, written in Miami when I was a reporter there. And I was the guy who came in at 9 o'clock every morning, and whatever horror had been committed that day, I was sent out to cover. I never knew whether they were going to want a great big huge front page story, or if the story was going to wind up being thrown into the back of the paper someplace because bigger stuff had happened. So I'd go out, I'd come back in around 1 o'clock in the afternoon or noon, and they would then at 2 o'clock have their daily meeting to decide what stories were going to go where, and I'd essentially be sitting around waiting for that decision. In that 1 hour period, or hour and a half that occurred on most days, I wrote a novel called The Wheel Key Number, which was a standard detective novel. And it didn't sell, but I learned a lot about writing from it. And so that was the first book. Now it seems naive to me. It seems like a mid-50s noir novel. It just doesn't seem very good, but I learned a lot from it.
Think you could reboot that somehow? I mean, you said you've got some stuff in there that you liked. I mean, that's probably true of everything. You know, there's some good stuff somewhere. There's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff.
Well, you know, it has
occurred. Because you have the ghost novel, and you keep thinking about rebooting that, maybe.
It has occurred to me that it's occurred to me that I would like to write sometime an L.A. noir story. You know, like the old L.A. noir things that went on and back in the 40s and stuff like that, and really come out with kind of a dark story set in L.A. Maybe I'll call it L.A. Noir. But at any rate,
that was a game actually. Just a couple
I think it's probably been a book too, and maybe even a movie. But the thing is, it's just as easy to write a new book as it is to try to reboot an old one.
Fair enough. Okay, one actual last question here. Jan Everson Weenzettel says, I remember reading someplace you were once a reporter for the Pioneer Press. Is that what influenced you to become an author, or have you always had the desire?
Well, I've always had the desire to be an author. I worked in Miami for 8 years and then came and worked for the Pioneer Press for about 10 or 12. And most of that time I kind of thought that I'd wind up being a book writer. But the experience you get from being a newspaper man is invaluable when it comes to being a reporter. A lot of the people who make money now working for newspapers, or make money writing books, used to work for newspapers. Michael Connolly worked for the LA Times. Lee Child was a television producer in England. And there are just a number of people here who have worked for the media in one way or another and who eventually segued into books.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call this done, just because I don't want to go completely overboard with too much stuff.
Okay.
And we can see how this turned out.